So go ahead and open your notebooks to right after your vocabulary, whatever the next page is that you have available in your notebooks, in the India section, of course. We're going to be talking about two empires in India in the Middle Ages. Here we're talking about the Gupta Empire and the Chola Empire. You will notice that I have added an extra little leg right here. There's going to be an extra bubble down here that I've had to add. Don't draw the circles just yet because you don't know how big you're going to need to be. So my suggestion is that, yes, go ahead and draw the center one. And then, write the words first, then put the circle around the words. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. There's going to be two bubble maps, two different pages. We're going to start with the Gupta Empire. So yes, the first one is the Gupta Empire. Okay, and let's talk about their beginnings and their achievements. So, the Gupta Empire was begun by Chandragupta in 320 CE, which is the same as AD. Okay, means the Common Era, so this is after Jesus was born. And so this begins in northern India. Okay. And so it starts in 320 CE, and then it's by 335 that the empire is like the most powerful political force in northern India. So he starts it, and then his son, Samudragupta, expands it, and he does this through conquest, right? And he takes it, he's a warrior, and he enlarges it. He conquers neighboring kingdoms, and he rules for 45 years. Okay? And then Samudra's son, so Chandragupta's grandson, named after his grandfather, Chandragupta II, so he takes over in 385. So his rule is 385 to 415. That's not how long he lived. That's how long he ruled. Okay? So he ruled the empire from 385 to 415, and during that time, the empire, he expanded it to where the empire reached from coast to coast in northern India. So that's when it was at its height. That's when it was the most powerful. It was the biggest. Okay, it was the wealthiest ever since the Mauryan Empire, which was like 650 years before that. Okay. Okay, so some things that went on that are important about the Gupta Empire. Trade. Okay, the Guptas traded with China, with Southeast Asia, and with neighboring regions in the Mediterranean or across the Mediterranean. There were advances in culture or changes in culture, advances in science and technology. This was a time of great peace and prosperity and stability. Okay, so they were able to engage in all this trade. Okay, and there was economic growth because of the trade. And with this, as they're trading with other cultures, their own art is going to have some different kinds of changes and developments. Plus, they're going to be bringing in some styles and stuff from these other nations that they're trading with. They're going to be combining it with their own, and new kinds of artistic expression are going to be flourishing. Okay, and there's different kinds of religious interaction. So there had been, so Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism had been the most prevalent religions in India up to that point. And so we're now going to see expansion of that over into China and Southeast Asia. But India itself is going to pretty much stay Hindu and Buddhist and Jainist. So things that they traded, goods that they traded, would have been salt, cloth, which was the main textile, and iron. They did a lot of metal working, and they had direct control of the trade. So there was no, somebody else controlling it. They controlled it themselves. They taxed the goods that were going out and that were coming in. So they're making money on the imports. They're making money on the exports just because of taxes, not because of the sales. Of course, they're making money on the sales, but also because of the taxes. And they owned their own gold and silver mines. So they're, that's helping with trade. For one, they're able to make things out of the gold and the silver that they can trade. Plus, that already makes them a wealthier nation just because they have the gold and the silver. So some things that they started doing, some accomplishments. They started building freestanding temples and palaces of stone. They had been doing most of their building out of wood. Well, during the Gupta Empire, they started building out of stone, which would make things a lot more sturdy. And a lot of the buildings from this time period still last today. We see some advances in astronomy, such as realizing that the Earth was round, that it rotates on an axis, and that it actually does revolve around the sun. So yes, we didn't need to wait until, like Galileo to figure this out. No, it was India, okay? India figured this out, right? They actually, they were figuring this out all around the world, okay? It wasn't Europeans that necessarily discovered it, okay? But this stuff is being figured out all over the place. But this is in the 300s here, okay? 300s and 400s. Not waiting until we get into the scientific revolution in Western Europe. No, it's happening before that. Okay, some cultural things, some pastimes that they had. They used tambourines for music and flutes, and a drum-like instrument called a tabla. They created the game of chess and a game called Snakes and Ladders, which is now a children's game that you may have played when you were younger, called Chutes and Ladders. That's where it comes from. And Chutes and Ladders, or Snakes and Ladders, which also Chutes and Ladders, is a metaphor for the caste system or the Varna system for how you basically, for reincarnation. okay, for moving out of one caste and trying to, live, your best life and be your best self and get from a lower level in society up to the next level and then up to the next, and then finally basically cycle out through reincarnation and unite with Brahman, the supreme deity. During the Gupta Empire, it was the Indian people who developed algebra and the concept of zero, and they connected it with the idea of nothing. So zero meaning nothing. It's a placeholder that means nothing. The idea of infinity, going on forever and ever and ever. And the numbers, the actual digits, 1 through 9. And those would later be adopted by Arabic scholars, and later on they would be adopted by European traders and merchants and scholars, and they would replace Roman numerals. And so our number system that we use nowadays, of course you recognize numbers 1 through 9, and of course 0, they're actually called Indo-Arabic numerals. Okay? Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and move on to the Chola Empire. Alright, so the Chola Empire. Now there's not as much about the Chola Empire as you can see. We've only got 5 bubbles. Okay, so the Chola Empire started in southern India, and this was in the mid-800s. So this was obviously several hundred years after the Gupta Empire, and it was after the Gupta Empire fell. Okay, so there was a while from like the mid 400s where there were like uprisings and invasions from foreign enemies that kind of weakened the authority of the Guptas. You had the Huns invading from Central Asia that just totally destroyed the Guptas' resources, drained their resources. And by 550, the Gupta Empire had basically broken down into just smaller kingdoms and just regional states. And then, so it was just a bunch of little kingdoms until the mid-800s when the Cholas got together and arose, and it's a dynasty, okay, and they eventually form an entire empire through expansion. Okay, it becomes an empire when it's really big and it covers basically a lot of territory. And it's territory, it's power, and so it's in, so it's by 850, the Cholas grew their state, their small little state, into this huge empire. And this lasted until the early 1200s, so around 400-ish years, 350 to 400 years. And so some things that they did, they're trade networks, okay, and they were trading across much of the Indian Ocean, okay, so not just on land, but across the ocean, and they're trading also with Southeast Asia, with China, and also with the Middle East. Okay. They, like the Guptas, also built huge Hindu temples with, statues. They're continuing to build from stone. Couple that are very famous. There's one called the Tanjavur. That's built by the ruler Raja Chola the First, and that's built in 1010. Pardon me. That one actually still stands today. And they had religious festivals there, other celebrations, and it's actually cited as a scientific and cultural. It's cited by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, which is called UNESCO, as a World Heritage Site. And then another one is they had a lot of bronze. They're very famous actually for their bronze statues of kings and queens and of religious figures. So they had the Nataraja, which is also called Lord of the Dance, and they had some of their god, that was their god Shiva, and Shiva is also the destroyer. Shiva is the destroyer. And so this shows him in a dance inside of a circle of flames. So Shiva he's got 4 arms, his legs are bent, and his hair is waving, and it's kind of showing a mood of energy as he's doing this kind of a cosmic little dance thing going on. And so it's a very famous little bronze statue. Shiva is one of the most famous, popular, well-known gods, one of Hindu gods. The other 2 most well-known are Vishnu and Rama and Krishna. So, and then of course you've got Brahman, which is the supreme deity, the supreme god. So anyway, that's the Chola Empire in a nutshell, and the Gupta Empire in a nutshell. And you can go ahead and I will be posting these later on, so if there's anything that you did not get, you can you'll be able to go back and get these. But I'll go ahead and hold this here for a little while, and then I'll go ahead and put the other one back up. this one up for just a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to change it over. Feel free to, decorate this, make it pretty. Alright, I'm going to go back to the chola. That one up for a few minutes for you. Like I said, I will be posting this one later on, not till this afternoon.